Now I know it's always up to personal preference, but I think it's a fact that Tokyo is a paradise for videographers and photographers alike, and for anybody with a creative imagination, for that matter. Now, taking street portraits in itself is already a scary process. Now add to the fact that this interaction will not be occurring in your native language, even more daunting. So here are some guidelines that I used during my experience shooting street portraits in Tokyo. So first thing I want to touch upon is subject. Remember, the most important thing for everything, your subjects are human beings. So they do have lives to live outside of your fascination with them. Which means if somebody's rushing, it's probably best to not try and stop them in their tracks for the sake of taking a photo. Residential areas, very tricky. No matter how interesting the scene may be, I wouldn't be snap happy with people within the vicinity of their own homes. In regards to the spectrum of children and the elderly, I get it. Japanese children are just kawaii desu, but I wouldn't go and take photos of children on the street. I would definitely try to ask for permission from an adult or a guardian if present. Otherwise, I would just refrain from doing so. As for the elderly, I found that they're more apprehensive to having their photo taken. That's not to say that there hasn't been opportunities presented where they were open to doing so, but I just found in my experience that they tend to be a bit more apprehensive. Basic common courtesy is essential. I mean, just be mindful of the present time, location, and situation at hand. For example, at the Asakusa Sensuji Temple, which is a very touristy place, there was an elderly man who was tending to about 3 or 4 dogs, and they were so cute, photogenic, and people just started coming up next to the dogs or to the owner and taking photos without even asking for permission. And he started getting aggravated and kept on saying no photo, no photo, and eventually just got up and left because people weren't respecting his wishes. Focus. So with all that said, some of my favorite places to take street photos in the greater Tokyo area are the Shimokitazawa neighborhood, which is where I'm at right now, the Kenji neighborhood, which is often dubbed as the coolest neighborhood in Tokyo, and of course Harajuku, just because of the street fashion and the colorful characters. But of course there are plenty other places in Tokyo where there is an abundance of characters to take photos of, but of course just be mindful and have basic common courtesy. Now the next step, which is just as important as choosing your subject and location, is knowing your approach. Before I get into how I go about things, this is like the 5th time I've said this. Now, before I get into how I go about things, knowing your approach means having an idea of what kind of portrait you want to take, and being able to dial these necessary settings before you even take the photo, because you do not want to have to fumble through your menu when the opportunity presents itself to take somebody's portrait, because you also don't want to waste your time and the time of your subject, because these interactions often come in small pockets of time. Now, personally, for my process, this meant learning a bit of Japanese. This is the part where I greet them in accordance to the time of day. So if it's in the afternoon, I say konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. 英語が話せますか?
ちょっと
Now, after asking them if they know how to speak English, I still make it a point to continue the interaction in Japanese. Only because, remember, you are a guest in their country. And by speaking Japanese, I feel like it helps ease the tension. Also because, remember, you are a foreigner and they don't speak your language, but you're the one asking for their portrait. I feel like they appreciate that you've taken the time to actually learn their language. 私はケンです。私は出身の学生です。 あなたの写真を撮ってもいいですか？
いいえ。
はい、ありがとう。気をつけて。20%. Now I've had to practice this plenty of times before I even came to Japan, but that's the point. I think you're supposed to practice and practice until it becomes routine or a habit, so that when the opportunity presents itself, it just comes out naturally and you don't seem too nervous, even though it's still quite nerve-wracking. Another important part of your approach is building a rapport. Actually, it's probably the most important. And this means interacting with your subject, because they're human beings and you're a human being also, unless you're an alien, of course. But this means when the language barrier isn't too much of a challenge, this means asking them how they're doing or what they like to do, or just even asking what their name is after the interaction means a lot. So key phrases like "O genki desu ka?" or "O namae wa nan desu ka?" will kind of help bring you a long way, because you're inquiring about them and the interaction is not just one-sided where you're taking the photo and that's it. You're taking their photo because they're interesting and you want to know more about them. So the last thing I want to speak on is patience and consistency. There's been plenty of days where I've went out and came back to the hostel without a street portrait or without having taken a photo of anybody. But I think that's okay. My point was, if I can at least go out and ask and get rejected at least once, then to me that's successful. But the point is to just keep on trying. You solidify your approach, you become more confident, and you learn how to interact with people in a different manner than most. All in all, I know it's a lot to take in, but Tokyo as a city and Japan as a country have so much to offer the mind. I mean, I was so intimidated at first because of all the stuff that I had read on the internet about taking photos of people and how strict they were about certain things. But after just jumping into it, I learned that there are so many extraordinary stories to be shared from ordinary people, and that's the type of story that I want to share with everybody. So if you have any reservation about bringing your curiosity and your camera to Japan, I say do so. It's going to be scary at first, but everything that's new is scary at first. But after you get used to it and you just practice and you just get out there and put yourself out there, it will get better. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Hopefully I helped out in your curiosity in some way about taking street portraits in Tokyo or anywhere else for that matter. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My handle on Instagram is PassportKenny, or you can hit me up at passportkenny@gmail.com. But aside from that, drop that like button if you like, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching. Peace. Mata ne.